afternoon. There we go. It's so good to see you all here. We've packed the room. We're going to try and get the temp to go down just a smidge. It might get a little warm in here, but it's really great to see this many people here. What a great location for a meeting, right? Anyway. Couple of quick housekeeping things. In case you don't know, I'm Nancy Heather with NCPP. We work with getting the conferences set up. The restrooms are right there, so you can go out either door, and they're basically right behind me. There is a meeting app. If you have not done so already, you can scan the QR code. It'll be on the streaming welcome slides. There are sheets all over with QR codes on them. It's one of those. It'll keep you, the agenda and a whole bunch of other information will be in the app. If you have any other questions, you know where Darlene is, so she can answer anything. And I just wanted to say welcome from NCPP and introduce our first moderator and host of this year's meeting, South Dakota DOT's Todd Thompson.
All right, well, welcome everybody to South Dakota and Deadwood. Hopefully you've all seen some of the wonderful colors outside and had a little time this morning in this beautiful fall day. I think Nancy's covered most everything. I don't plan on reading any of the bios for the speakers. They're all in the app. You can click on each person and get their full bio. If you hear something you like, you can put in a friend request or whatever they call it in the app, and you can reach out to that person and get some more information from that person. So with that, we'll introduce our first speaker, Steve Johnson. He's our Chief Bridge Engineer for the South Dakota DOT, and he'll do a little intro and welcome to South Dakota.
So good afternoon. Good to see all you people. Saw a lot of old friends. Didn't expect to see some of the folks I saw here, but it's good to see some old friends. Andrew, Minnesota, he was going to get me a Fran Tarkington jersey, but that didn't pan out. So anyway, good to see you all here. Good to see all the vendors. On behalf of Department Secretary Joel Junt, who sends his regrets that he couldn't be here, I'd like to welcome you, along with the rest of the Office of Bridge Design folks, welcome you to Deadwood for this year's Midwest Bridge Preservation Partnership Conference. I looked over the agenda. Looks like we have a great conference this year. A lot of vendors, a lot of good vendors. I visited with a few of those already this morning, early afternoon. So good to see you all here. Before we talk a little bit about bridge preservation, for those of you that aren't from South Dakota or haven't been here before, I'd like to introduce you a little bit to the great state of South Dakota. From the plains on the eastern side of the state through the Missouri River Valley, which is really kind of scenic this time of year. Not a lot of hardwood trees, but a lot of trees changing colors similar to what's out here, there. And then as you progress west, you go through the scenic Badlands, kind of an area of our state that's really unparalleled. There's nowhere else in America that's like it. It's a pretty neat little place. So if you get a chance with this conference or some other time to come visit, be sure and see the Badlands. And then, of course, on to South Dakota Black Hills. A wonderful little place to be. A lot of scenic things out here in the hills. A lot of history out in the hills, from the gold rush to some of the gambling that we've got now, and a lot of neat things to see out here. Really pretty scenic this time of the year, so you're here at the right time. And for those of you that are tourists, if you just go a little bit east of here, 100 miles or so, maybe a little more, we've got Wall Drug. I'm sure everybody that's here has seen a Wall Drug sign, right? And they still have free ice water, and they still have a nickel cup of coffee. I think the cup is pretty small on both of those now, but you can certainly get those. Talk a little bit about Deadwood. A lot of things to do here, and if you've been here for a little bit, you've seen downtown Deadwood, the surrounding hills. You know, we've got certainly the gambling, but there's a lot of history here with the gold rush days. Striking gold is kind of the theme, I guess. And you know, if you get a chance to head downtown or even at the center here, try your hand at a little blackjack or some of the games. I can't guarantee you'll strike gold, but there's a chance anyway. Might be kind of small, but there is a chance. So if you like that kind of thing, you know, give it a try. Should be a lot of opportunities. And finally for the nature lovers, if there are those among us, there's a lot of opportunities in the hills to do some hiking. We have a lot of beautiful hiking paths. There's an old railroad that ran from north of here all the way to almost all the way to Nebraska. Awesome little path that you can take and see the hills kind of from the backside, off the beaten path where you don't see the tourist traps and that sort of thing, but pretty neat to do. And there's a lot of other trails just in the Deadwood area. You can do a lot of hiking. One of my favorite things to do is go down to the cemetery here and check out some of the gravestones. Wild Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane are there, and you can, if you're really into hiking, you can walk up to Seth Bullock's grave on top of the hill. That's quite a hike. I did it once. I probably won't do it again, but it's a pretty fun hike. So a lot of things to do here. We hope you enjoy your time here in Deadwood, South Dakota. But a little bit about South Dakota and our history of bridges and structures. We're a pretty small state. Our population's less than 1 million. And some of you probably come from states where you have office buildings with more people than our whole capital city. We only have about 12,000 at our capital city. Pretty small state population-wise, but area-wise, we're the 17th largest state in America. So we have a lot of land to cover. We have about 8,000 miles of highways. Actually, I just call those approaches to bridges, right? That's all they serve. They don't really do anything else but get people to our bridges. We have, on our state network, we have about 1,820 structures that we maintain in my office, and Todd's the maintenance engineer, and our construction engineers here too. We do a pretty good job, I think. We're pretty fortunate. We're kind of proud of the fact that currently we have only about 50 structures rated poor, which is less than 3% of our inventory. We kind of take pride in that number. We think that we're doing a good job reducing that. It's steadily been coming down, and we're in a time when there's some funding available for us to be able to reduce that even further, so we're pretty proud of that. Fortunately, South Dakota, before my time, there was some pretty good engineers that started our network, and they realized very early on the importance of not only maintaining structures, but building the right kind of structures, ones that serve well and have long lifespans. So back in the 60s, we started with integral abutment bridges, which was an attempt to, move the joint, move the water, keep that off of the substructure, the superstructure, get that away from the end of the bridge. So we've been building integral abutments since then. And we've been very proactive, or try to be very proactive when new technologies come out. We try to adopt those. We adopted, for example, epoxy-coated resteel early on. When that came out, we started using that in the 70s, and we started, like a lot of states, putting it in only the top mat because we thought we were saving a little bit of money. We soon realized that maybe it wasn't saving that much money, and so we put it in both mats. And we've looked at a lot of things for different reinforcing for our decks, for example, and we just switched to stainless steel reinforcing to help reduce the effects of corrosion on some of our structures. We're also very fortunate here in South Dakota. As you drive around the hills, if you look around, you see the aggregate out here, the rock, limestones. We've got limestones on this end of the state, and on the other end of the state, we've got some pretty good quartzites and some granites up in the northeast corner. So we've had pretty good aggregates, and we can make, a lot of times, some pretty good concrete. So we've been using 4,500 PSI concrete since the 70s, which really helps us, with durability and some good dense concrete to help protect our structures. One of the things we just tried this year is a new concrete mix. Our research folks developed a low shrinkage concrete for decks, and we just finished our first deck about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they tell me that there's no cracks in it yet. I've been around a long time, and I find that kind of hard to believe, frankly, because most of our decks do get cracks right away. But this particular deck, 3 weeks old, doesn't have any cracks yet. And although it's hard to believe, if that's the case and it stays that way, that'll be a great development. We'll be able to, if we can reduce the cracking in our decks, certainly we can help with structure serviceability and service life, that kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes, but it's certainly something that we think is important. Along with building the right bridge types, as I mentioned, we're very fortunate that we had some pretty progressive engineers that realized back in the 60s and 70s that not only do we need to build the right kind, but like I mentioned earlier, we really need to maintain what we've got. If we can preserve the bridges that we have and we can maintain those bridges, we can get a lot more service life out of those. The old spec back in the day when I started was a 50-year design life, and if you got 50 years out of a bridge, you were doing pretty darn good in a lot of cases. And we've got a lot of our inventory well over 50 years, and a lot of it's in pretty good shape. And a lot of that reason is that we've done a lot of things to help preserve our decks. I don't know if you had a chance to drive around the hills, and I don't know if there's any remnants. We had a pretty good snowstorm come through here last week already. I think dropped 8, 10, 12 inches in different parts of the hills. So we get a lot of cold weather, we get a lot of snow, we get a lot of freeze-thaw cycles. which means we use a lot of de-icing chemicals. We use a lot of salt back in the day. We're using liquid de-icers now, those kinds of things. Always looking for a better de-icer, right? I'm like everybody. And I know there's folks from the northern tier of states too that have the same issue. But we put a lot of de-icers on, so protecting our decks is very important to us. And you know, back in the 70s, we started out with some rubberized asphalt chip seal, trying to seal decks. Maybe had some limited success. We kind of abandoned that in the 70s. We started using some polymer chip seals, and we've done that, some real thin polymer chip seals. We started with single layer polymer chip seals and had a little bit of success with that, but had some issues, so we've gone to a 2-layer chip seal now that seems to work pretty good for us. They're not all perfect, but certainly they help to seal up our decks and keep the moisture out. Another thing that we do is, and we've done this for several years, and some of our bridge inspection folks are out here, we've put some silane sealers on our decks when they're brand new. Kind of gets us through that first few years, seals the deck up, and gets us some life until we can get to that time when we're ready for a polymer chip seal. So we kind of do that, and hopefully we can, you know, get some extended service life out of our decks. One of the other things that we do, and I won't talk too much more about preservation activities because you guys are all the experts, not me certainly, but one of the other things we do is we like to do overlays when we can. We started back in the 70s with some polymer concrete overlays, thin 1.5 to 2-inch overlays. When decks were starting to delaminate and get in tough shape, we put down some polymer overlays, and we've done some low slump concrete overlays also. We kind of went away from the polymer latex modified overlays, excuse me. We're probably thinking we might get back into those. I think they've worked really well for us. We generally get 25 to 30 years maybe out of some overlays, and we've got some concrete slab bridges that were overlaid 25, 30 years ago. Maybe some of those are starting to see the end of their service life, but we think we can overlay those again and continue to get service life out of those bridges. So we're looking to do that, and hopefully we can really extend the life of those structures. Like I said, our current preservation practices, we really want to protect our bridge decks and slabs. We like to keep the joints off the end of the bridge, like I talked about earlier, build a lot of integral abutment bridges. And we also, one of the other things that we do to get away from decks a little bit is we have a pretty robust plan. Scour is a big issue for us. We have a lot of flashy streams, hydraulics-wise. Of course, we got the Missouri River, which is big, but a lot of other rivers, and so we had a fairly robust program to mitigate scour where we can reasonably do so. A lot of riprap projects, different scour protection methods that we've used over the years. And lastly, on structures, I haven't talked much about our local structures. We have quite a network of local structures that some of our local government folks are here today too, that we help out our local governments with. One of the things we're kind of proud of is back in 2015, our legislature had the foresight to raise some taxes, some gas tax and some excise taxes and those kinds of things, and dedicate that money to our local system of bridges. We started with about $8 million in that fund back in 2015. Today, with not only the funds from the legislature, but we've put some of our federal money into that, we're at about $41 million that's available for locals to use for bridge, not only replacements, but we think just as important is preservation. They've got a lot of structures out there. They actually have around 4,500 structures, and they're able to use that money for preservation and replacement as they see fit and as they see a need. So we're kind of proud that we're able to help with that, and we think it's a great thing for the bridge network in South Dakota. So enough about preservation. I'll leave that to the experts in the room. But as you're here in Deadwood, take a look around. Deadwood, like I said, has a lot of history, not only from the gold rush in 1874 and discovery in 1874 and the big rush in 1876. But you got Wild Bill Hickok and his story. You got Calamity Jane and her story. A lot of stories with both those folks. And if you head downtown, you can see a lot of references to them. Hopefully you get a chance to go downtown and wander around a little bit and look at some of the historic buildings, kind of in the spirit of this conference. If you take a look around, they've done a lot of preservation work here in Deadwood, restored a lot of buildings. They have built some new ones, but they've made them kind of look historic to blend in. But a lot of preservation work has been done in Deadwood. So take a look around. It's pretty impressive, and it's pretty neat to see. And again, as I noted earlier, I think we got a great conference, a lot of great speakers on the agenda, a lot of people to go visit, a lot of booths to take a look at. I encourage you, as you spend the next day and a half or 2 days with us, don't be afraid to ask questions. If you got some questions, ask them. You know, if you're in some sessions, participate. If you have an opinion, voice your opinions. Visit with people. Get to know what others are doing. See what you can pick up. If you got experiences, either good or bad, share them with people, because we all learn from things that don't work. And if people have things that do work, we like to hear about those too, so we can maybe, well, borrow the idea from you, let's say, not steal it. But we like to use those too. So, you know, participate. I encourage you to visit with folks and encourage you to participate. Finally, if you need anything while you're here at the conference, you can stop by at the registration desk, or if you see somebody from South Dakota DOT, we've got several folks here from my office. I like to see them working, so if you got a question or anything, certainly ask, and we'll do what we can to help you out and answer your questions. Lastly, just want to say thanks for your attention, and I hope you have a fantastic stay in Deadwood and a wonderful conference. Thanks.